Aloha. My name is Marty Fujita, and I'm here actually representing Kaliko Amona, who's the program director for the Kokua Hawaii Foundation. And I'm actually kind of a poser. I'm from Hawaii by way of Ojai, but I did wear my flip-flops. And imagine Kaliko's surprise when she finds out I've invited all of you to come to the land of Aloha for a field trip. I did serve as an advisor and helped to found the first farm-to-school program in Hawaii, so Kaliko asked me if I'd come and represent them. A few Hawaii basics. It's very isolated, in fact, the most isolated archipelago in the world. There's 2,500 miles surrounding it, and it goes from snow in Mauna Kea, about 13,800 feet, to almost desert conditions at sea level. Became the 50th state with the overthrow of the monarchy in 1959. There's a very high reliance on imported foods, up to 80%, and also an incredible dependence on fossil fuels, 90%. The population density is about equal to the state of Virginia. It's the 13th most populous state, and by the way, Alaska is the least populous state. And the most populous island is Oahu. It's ethnically and culturally very diverse. There's a majority-minority population here with very strong Asian and Polynesian influence, a very strong sense of family and community, and the largest percentage of mixed-race population, 20% in the U.S. There's also a very interesting historical tradition called the Ahupua'a, which is a community organization that's based on watershed areas in these very steep ravines. And it goes from mountain to the sea coast. And each Ahupua'a was traditionally ruled by one chief. And they were all pretty much self-sustaining, providing all the fish, the salt, the vegetable produce and everything else, the wood for canoes, etc., in each Ahupua'a region. They were also governed by a system of kapu, which is like a taboo that regulated the amount of fish or food or whatever that you could take within a certain season. So it was a very interesting traditional way of living. A little bit about Hawaii agriculture. It's fertile. Very fertile volcanic soils, and we're really year-round. You think California's year-round, Hawaii is very year-round. Great, lots of rain, tropical climate, you all know that. Many, many different microclimates and varying conditions of growing seasons depending on altitude or the leeward or the windward side of each of the islands. And according to the state of Hawaii, there are almost 2 million acres in agriculture, which represents about 47% of the total land area of the state. However, most of those, that agricultural land is in two crops, sugar and pineapple, and the market crashed in the late 1990s because labor was so expensive in Hawaii, and it all went over to Asia. So the good news is that recently there's been much more of an increase in diversity of the fruits and vegetables that are being produced on that arable land in Hawaii. The bad news is the land values are so incredibly high. There's a shortage of labor, and those labor costs are also very high. A lot of the farmers dispersed after the mega plantations for sugar and pineapple dispersed. So there are some huge issues that small local farmers are dealing with, in addition to a very poor infrastructure for local distribution of a lot of those products. So it's kind of complicated, and what happens is a lot of the farmers end up, to make any money at all, having to sell their produce to the tourism market and very high-end hotels. And a lot of those price points are out of reach for a lot of the local people who live there. Ironic. And the bad thing is that they are, of course, agriculture is competing with the tourism sector for both land and workers. Not a very, it's a kind of a tenuous situation. But with regard to the farm-to-school environment in Hawaii, the good news is there's one statewide school district with 258 schools and a humongo bureaucracy. The public school scores are sadly below the national average for the No Child Left Behind test. The childhood obesity rates are greater than the national average, although oddly enough, I just saw a report that said that Hawaii ranks actually as one of the best states in terms of the rate of obesity across the board. So really, the childhood obesity rates are very high, and that is very much tied in with socioeconomic and ethnic distinctions. And sometimes in those communities, the childhood obesity rate is twice as high as the national average of 30%. The good news is that the Department of Education is very interested and supportive of nonprofits who are putting their funds towards farm-to-school programs, especially those programs that integrate Hawaii state academic standards. The Department of Education wellness policy for the state has also been established, and we've had a hand in that, and it's now being cited as one of the reasons for a growing interest in farm to school in order to meet the wellness policy obligations. So that's all good news.